Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for this interactive session on building your startup support network for startup team to the ecosystem. I'm Kirsten Leute of Osage University Partners, and I'm also a co-founder of Equalize Startup. We're so glad that you're here joining us today for this combination of a panel and discussion session where we're focused on women, but who have either been a part of the Equalize program or maybe thinking about joining the Equalize program, or you're one of our committee members who'd worked on the program. But we also welcome everyone else to this very important topic about networking. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Equalize Startups is a nonprofit launchpad dedicated to fueling the success of women founders in academia. It's a 6-month program that offers expert training, personalized mentoring, networking, and a pitch competition, all designed to help women academic inventors successfully navigate the startup ecosystem. We do have our applications open right now for our 2026 cohorts. We're very excited about that. We have a deadline of November 14th to apply. And as we go through our session today, we'll put that information into the chat. We're going to start our program by hearing from ecosystem leaders about their approach to building support networks, and then we're going to move on to an interactive discussion. So we are so glad you are here today, but we are hoping that you actually will be active participants after we go through our panel discussion as well, so that we all can learn from each other and network with each other as well. So with that, we are going to have a panel talk about the subject for about a half an hour or so here, and then we'll go into that discussion group. I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves before we go on here. Jennifer, could you start us off?
Sure, happy to. Jennifer Griffin. I'm a partner with Mission Bow Capital. We do early stage biotherapeutics investing. And I'm a scientist by training, study microbiology and genetics. I got my degree about 15 years ago. And I've worked with early stage companies for that whole time. So started at MIT's licensing office, spinning out companies, and then in strategy consulting for a number of years, doing liquidity planning and representing relatively early stage companies on the sell side, and most recently managed the biotech investment strategy for the Massachusetts Life Sciences Center, which is a very large economic development effort, and launched a number of programs there for underrepresented founders. And it's been a pleasure to support Osage and Equalize in a number of ways for several years now.
We're so happy to have you here, Jennifer. And yes, your support and Mesh and Capital support in general has just been incredible for Equalize. And we'll talk more about that later. Nee.
Hi, I'm Nee. I am also a scientist turned VC. So I got my PhD at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I was a wharf inventor, so went through the traditional research, patenting, and then licensing with the startup journey with my advisor. And it is much harder to be on your side of the table than on the investor side of the table. So I moved to the investor side of the table because I'm not cut out for hard work. When I was in my PhD, I ran an accelerator program that worked with idea stage companies, a lot of them university spinouts and professors. Then I worked at the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation in their gap funding arm, working with professors, and then left that and ran a deep tech family office focused on direct investments into deep tech university spinouts as well as in VC funds. And now I work for a company called Alpha Intelligence Capital, AIC. We're a global AI focused, deep tech AI focused fund. And so we typically invest at the Series A, but we'll go much earlier. And we have a large portfolio of university spinouts. And I've been working with Equalize for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years. I have no idea.
We have a lot of long timers here at Equalize. We love the support. Charlie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Charlie. I'm co-founder and CEO of Intero Biosystems. We're a spin out from the University of Michigan. We did Equalize last year, and it's like completely changed my entire life. So I very appreciate it and excited to be here. We make miniature human organs for preclinical drug testing. So anything you test an animal on, you could test on our organs instead, and hopefully have a much more human relevant answer at the end. We are a pre-seed company. We closed our pre-seed round in June. And I've done a couple of accelerators, so just excited to talk about my experience here today and get to meet everybody.
Thank you, Charlie. Yeah, we're super excited for this conversation. We're so appreciative of Tough Tech Week for having us and allowing us to do this particular offering as a part of Tough Tech Week. And we'll get this conversation going. So There's a lot of different things that we could talk about with regards to building your network, what good those networks are for, et cetera. We're going to start off with incubators, accelerators, and other resources. So resources in general, what are the best ways to connect with incubators, accelerators, and other resources to help early stage startups? And do you have recommendations on how a founder should vet these particular resources for their needs? And we have a couple more follow-up questions on that, but I'm going to start there. And Jennifer, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. Yeah, so I think like all networking, warm intros are always helpful. I think accelerators and incubators generally are kind of less maybe difficult to get in touch with than VCs or pharma or big companies. So directly reaching out is always a place to start. We tend to try not to ignore emails from folks who want to learn about our accelerators and our incubators. But warm intros are also really helpful because they give a little bit of context of why, a connection makes sense. And I think with respect to suggesting, how to get in touch, or excuse me, how to evaluate incubators and accelerators, people that have been through them, right? So people who want to learn more about Mission Bow Capital should go talk to our portfolio companies. Same is true for incubators and accelerators. You get a really good sense of someone's experience and whether or not it's going to be worth your time. Many accelerators are a lot of work. So, you want to make sure it's worth the amount of work that you're going to put into something. And so talking to graduates and people who have had firsthand experience of working with them, I think is always where it's a good place to start. But generally speaking, directly reaching out to these resources also it works.
Great. Nee, you want to add on anything to that?
Yeah, I would agree with what Jennifer said. One other thing I would say is that as you're vetting and you're talking to people who have gone through those programs, it would be helpful to understand when in that company's lifetime the founders participated in that program. Because I worked at an accelerator program, and our job was to go out and encourage you to apply regardless of whether or not you were a good fit, which is incredibly predatory. But that's the metric that is the easiest KPI for people to measure. Um, so just, one, it might not be worth it for you to apply, or you might want to apply early so that you're on their radar. So just being mindful of the people you talk to. If the experience they had was good, asking them, when did you go through the program? When did you first engage? Like, what was the experience before you got into the program, while you're in the program, after you got into the program? All of those become really important for your own potential engagement. And then last but not least, I like talk to more than one, because most people have their own unique experiences with the accelerator. And so if you might run into somebody who's had really bad experience, and you might run into somebody who has really good experience, and opinions are just exactly that. They're not firm and hard data points, right? So just talk to more than one.
And Charlie, I know that you've gone through a number of accelerator programs now. How did you determine then what was worth your time?
Yeah, absolutely. I echo everything that's already been said. We have a rule that we interview at least 3 different companies that have gone through the accelerator that we're looking at, and we like to pick as randomly as possible while still being within the same, realm that we're in and stage that we're in. Because what we found a lot of times is that the accelerator might look great, but we're at the wrong stage, or maybe they don't have the exact area that we need help with right now. Like that's a future problem that we're going to have, or that's a problem that we just faced. So we interview the founders, and one thing that we really, really focus on is the support afterwards and how much time it takes during it. Your time is extremely valuable. It needs to match the amount of effort that you're putting in with how much you're getting out of it. And then once you're done with it, you want to make sure that you can continue to pursue that network, have great connections, and be able to come back to them for more help in the future, because you will always need more help.
Absolutely. And actually that goes really nicely to the next question is, can you give us some examples of how to stay connected with the programs after they're over? That's something that Equalize, we're still figuring out how to do that. This is an example of one of those programs where we're trying to connect people who've gone through the program, who are considering the program, et cetera. But any thoughts from any of you on how to stay connected once the programs are over, because you've made all these connections, and how do you keep that going with them? So Charlie, maybe I'll start with you this time.
Sure. I shamelessly reach back out to people when I have a problem. It's like such a great support network, both from the founders side, like the founders that I meet in these accelerators, as well as the accelerators themselves. So we've done Equalize, we've done Blueprint at the Engine, and both of which I've reached back out to the people I was close with in those accelerators. And I was like, hey, having this problem, do you know someone who can help me with it? I'm looking for this advisor. Is there anybody in your network? And they're always willing to help. And it's been wonderful. And also just, staying in touch with the other founders. You guys can always help each other during and after.
Yeah, staying in touch with the other founders is in one way that we've tried this with accelerators in the past is through Slack channels or having some type of actual platform where you can easily reach out quickly with minimal effort and people can reply at their leisure. That seems to work. I think the deeper connections you have with people don't necessarily require a Slack channel, but it's a nice way to sort of get that off the ground and have a peer group that you're kind of in touch with somewhat regularly. But I think, I like to hear from companies that have gone through accelerators that I've worked with or built when they have really great news too, because as I talk to other investors or folks that I might want to introduce them to, they're at the top of my mind because they just emailed me about, even if it's a small win, right? They hired a new person, maybe they have a new collaboration with another lab that's really going to give them some exciting data. Maybe they got some exciting data. And so they're at the top of my mind. I'm able to share it easily. And then also when there's a pivot in strategy for me, therapeutic area, maybe a modality switch, things like that, it's helpful to know too, so that I'm making the right introductions and connections for that company.
Perfect. Nia, anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, I would I agree, and I would add one other thing is that kind of like triaging the way in which you engage based on like how much time is needed. There's kind of low touch point, medium touch point, and high touch point type of engagement with the resources you already have. And so, one I would say is that if you've gone through an accelerator program, every accelerator program I know teaches people how to do investor and friends of the company updates. Please send them out. Those are really helpful. Like, for example, what Jennifer said about, if they're top of mind, well, one of the things that keeps somebody top of mind, especially when I was running an accelerator program, was if you sent your company updates, then I might not read it in detail, but I'll read it very quickly. And every update should have an ask, because if we don't know what you need, then we don't know what to offer you. So you make the thinking as easy for us as possible. I think that's really helpful. Medium touch point is, making sure that you're attending some of these events that you think are going to be relevant. So if it's a topical event, all accelerator programs have programming. They'll have different topics. So I think topical events are great to meet the new cohort as well as meet new mentors, etc., and then continue to be top of mind. And demo days, I think those are also really helpful because on the accelerator side, our job is to get as many people in that crowd as possible. So you're helping on that side. But on your side is that you'll kind of see the LPs and the sponsors and all of those. And I think that's really helpful. And then on the high touch point side, like we love people who are annoying. And so what I mean by that is like just badger us, just text us, email us, call us, show up to our office hours. Like the more earnest you are, I think the more you will be top of mind. Now, obviously, don't be unpleasantly annoying, but just being annoying is good.
Great. Well, that actually you started getting to our next topic, which is about being intentional with your networking. So could you and so what you were saying was just perfect. When you're starting to network, such as coffee chats and happy hour events, et cetera, what are ways that you really make sure that your networking is intentional?
Yeah, all of the things that you'll probably have heard people say, kind of do your research, make sure it's the right person. Um, I would almost kind of like split up my allocation of time. So
Yeah.
kind of figuring out like how much time do I truly have to be able to allocate to networking, and then how much of that is going to be kind of topical, very intentional ask focus, how much of it is discovery focus, etc. That's what I did when I first started in the VC space, and that really helped. The other thing is that like there's like the physical time that you commit, and then there's the emotional energy that you commit. And I also bucket out like how much emotional energy do I have to allocate to a difficult personality who might actually be really helpful, but will like really drain me. So I try to do that. And I'm sure Jennifer and Charlie will have a ton more really practical advice. But for me, it's always a matter of like balancing my time and balancing my energy. And for my time and my energy, my highest priority is always going to be um, the most urgent ask that I have. The person who will be able to answer that ask or make an introduction for that ask is always at the top of my list. But I never go a week without having one that's allocated to just kind of discovery. Like, I don't know what this conversation will lead me to, but I don't know what I don't know. So I need to allocate some time to the kind of like, I don't know what I don't know, and maybe this person will teach me something, at least one of those a week.
Charlie, same question.
The emotional bucketing is very smart. I have not thought of that before. I'm still in the getting to know everybody phase and learning how to do this properly. So my rule is I take within reason almost like any meeting or coffee chat that I have, because I've been very surprised at, I might be like, oh, this is kind of random. I don't really think anything's going to happen. And at the end of the meeting, they're like, oh, I know someone who would be perfect for you to talk to. And then it spins into something else. So I've again, like I'm slowly learning how to dial it in and protecting my time, but I'm still on I take as many meetings as I can. And I've been very surprised at people I meet, even if maybe there's not something directly that they can help me with or I can help them with in this moment. I've seen a lot of times like it comes back around, they think of me in a couple months, I send out my company update and something comes to fruition. So I would just say take as many as you possibly can. And I'm very fortunate to have a very supportive co-founder where I do all the talking and she is very good at running the science. So get yourself a support system that lets you do that. But I'll let Jennifer probably has some more tactical advice.
I agree with everything you said. I think tactically, I'm always surprised by the number of coffees, informational interviews I take with people, and they just want to hear from me, and they just have kind of a list of questions. They want to hear my journey. How did I get here? Things like that. And that's fine. I'm always happy to share that. But like, I need to know something. I need about you as well so that I can be helpful. So like half of the time we should be talking about you, and what you're looking for and what you're struggling with. And if actually we can start with that at the beginning, I think typically the rest of the conversation is a lot more productive, because sure, I could tell you about my 15-year career, but maybe only 2 years of that is going to be really helpful for you. And maybe there's a person I know in that time frame that can be super helpful. And if we don't really kind of focus the conversation, it's maybe a 45 minutes. That seems like a lot of time. It's actually not. So the more focused we can be at the outset, I think the better. And I want to remember you and something about you in the future.
Well, speaking about the people, oh, sorry, you wanted to say something.
I think, on what Jennifer said about, half of the time should be talking about you. Like at minimum, I think every meeting needs to be that you're perfecting your ability to pitch yourself and your company, not just your company, not just yourself, but you should be perfecting the pitch. And a pitch doesn't, I know that everybody kind of talks about a pitch as if you're like fundraising or something like that. And the idea is that, it's not. It's about you telling your story and your company's story. And every time you tell it to somebody, it might be their first time and it's not your first time. So you have to kind of just perfect the art of telling your story as if it's the first time you're telling it, because it might be somebody's first time hearing it. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it. So I think at minimum, that should be your minimum goal.
Can I say one more thing too? Because that was fabulous. So going along with what was all just said, and this is going to sound very formulaic, but I promise, like the more you do this, the easier it becomes. But when you introduce yourself, you can tell your story, and then I usually weave in like, and what I would like to talk about today related to that is, or like, this is my problem. I'm hoping to learn from you. Like, I'd love to hear more about yourself. But by introducing yourself and telling your story, you can really work in that part where you're going to talk about what problem you have or what you want to talk about while still getting to learn about the other person and it being natural and a fun conversation to have.
Well, you had some elements woven in there about the people and having these conversations because you're getting to know people. And of course, one of the most important elements that are startups anywhere in their journey is the people that are associated with it. And recruiting people often can be a huge task for the startup company. So I'd like each of you to talk generally about how to find the people to help build your startup teams. And your networking is a huge part of that, to find those people who are going to be the right folks to do so. So I'm going to open it up. Jennifer, maybe I could have you talk first, since you come from the investor side, but also on the accelerator side as well.
Yeah, I mean, networking is super, super helpful. I think asking people that you trust for their opinions and for their references and connections. I think, it's especially when you're building a very small early stage company, it's as much about someone being able to check all of the skills and requirements you need in this particular job, and sometimes even more about the fit and whether or not they can get behind the mission and the vision of what you're building and how excited they are to do that. And do they balance and complement areas that you are weak in? Can they work with your communication style? A lot of these are sometimes even more critical than have they done what you need them to do before, because in early stage companies, it's really about finding people who can grow with the company. And small teams, you're going to do a little bit of everything. So you want people that can be adaptable and versatile and figure things out, right? You don't want them to come to you with every single question that they've never answered before. You got to kind of figure it out. And to be good at that, they likely also have a network that they can go to when they're stuck. And so it is really about networks and asking, and put the job description up there, but it's really about who thinks they can find that type of fit for you. And then you're kind of marrying this person, so you really want to get it right. It's really, really difficult to start over and kind of part ways and try to find that person again. It's a waste of time and money, and you don't have either of those things as you're an early stage company. So getting it right is really important, and it's another reason that you want to leverage people that you trust in your network.
Absolutely. Charlie, I'm going to move on to you next, because I actually think that what Jennifer was just saying about finding that right person, you were talking already about how you complement each other, you and your co-founders. So maybe your thoughts on building this startup team. And I know you've been doing some hiring too. So
Yes, it can be hard. Like, everyone tells you need to hire people that are different than you and smarter than you and all these other things. But when, especially coming out of like a PhD lab, like, everyone is trained to think like you. It's hard to be like, oh, like, I'm going to get somebody who doesn't just not agree with me, but think in the same line of thinking. And as an example, we recently hired a principal scientist who had a completely different skill set than us. And it has completely revolutionized the way we're thinking about our platform. Like, things I had never even considered were possible, she's bringing up. Like, she's what she thinks about all the time. And I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. So definitely would recommend getting yourself out of your comfort zone and looking for people that are much different from you. And one thing I'll say is, kind of going back to an earlier point about emotional management, we've had a lot of mentors that have like exactly what we're looking for. Like, they have the background, they have the network, but it's really hard to work with them. Like, me and them don't match. And I found that I kept finding myself like scared to meet with them, or it was like a big burden to meet with them. And I was like, you just need to do it. Like, they can help you. But honestly, like, being like, hey, this isn't a good match, and going to find someone who maybe has a slightly different skill set but works with me a lot better, has made bigger bounds for our company and myself personally than like trying to grit through a relationship that may or may not work. And I'm sure they feel the same way about me. So I think the people part of it, and like the vibes and making sure you guys all click and that you're all in on the mission, is something that isn't talked about as much as it should be. Because I think if someone's hungry and they like the mission and they're willing to learn, like, just because they don't have the background doesn't mean they can't be even better than the person who already does. So agreed with everything Jennifer said.
thanks, Charlie. Nee, having a background both at accelerators and in venture, looking at startups now, et cetera, your thoughts on networking to build that correct team for your startups?
Yeah, I would say on that last point that Charlie made, every founding team that we see, we are constantly gauging the fit. And we're not just talking about kind of skills fit, but we're talking about risk appetite fit, like vibe fit. And so if you are looking not just for a co-founder, but just anybody who joins your team, especially those early employees, those tend to be the make or break ones. Um, there's all of these surveys out there, and I don't know if people take them, but like Antler has one, for example, that I pulled up. It's 36 questions to fall in love with your co-founder. And what we like to call it is like almost like co-founder or like early startup team relationship therapy. And it's questions like beyond the skill fit, right? Like the skill fit are things that you can see on a resume or you can ask questions and you'll know. But things like, why are you doing this? What's your definition of success? Why is now the right time for a startup instead of like a more stable job? What is your definition of success in terms of like, how much do you have to get out of it? And personally, how much do you like the intangibles? And then what's the tangible, what you get out of it and when? And then the questions about, who else is in your life that might influence your kind of happiness at this startup? Like those kinds of questions, people don't ask often enough. And I've seen enough teams that fall apart because let's say, they're like, oh, well, I love this. I'm at a point in my life where I can do this. And then they have a child. And then all of a sudden, like they can't afford that anymore, right? And so I think asking those kind of therapy-like questions of your co-founder, of your early hires, those end up being really important. On the finding side of it, you never know where you're going to find them. And so I think you taking all of these meetings and having referrals and all of those are really important, but also telling your story a lot. There's like the proactive searching, and then there's the kind of inbound when people are interested. So telling your story and advertising your story, I think those end up being really good sources of inbound. And then last but not least, like it's not always important all the time to find people who complement your skills if you look at kind of like what all the skills are that you need for a successful startup. So what I mean by that is that at a certain point, you might need a go-to-market person, but you don't need a go-to-market person at every point in your company. So evaluating when you need somebody and then backtracking 6 to 12 months. The reason why we say 6 to 12 months is it takes a long time to develop a relationship. So if you need somebody tomorrow and you're trying to search today, you're not going to find them. So thinking like intentionally thinking about when do I need this talent on my team and then backtracking 6 to 12 months, that kind of eliminates you having to kind of be urgent, but also searching a little bit too early and then having candidates that then you don't end up like converting into somebody who joins your team.
Great. Jennifer, you look like you had a comment that you wanted to make on that as well.
I was just going to add from the VC's side or the investor side, it really is kind of funny how often we maybe deprioritize, like, has this person done it before? Do they have the skills to make it happen? Because if you really impress us with your knowledge base and your passion for making this happen, and you come off as coachable, meaning if I ask you a question, you don't know the answer, you're not going to bullshit me, and you are going to be open to where you could find that information, who could help you with it, and take my advice and perspective seriously. You don't have to take it every single time, but you've thought about it and you've made an effort to integrate it into your approach. Those are like way more important than has this person sold a drug to Lilly before. And so I think also finding a teammate that has that sense of coachability too, right? Like you want to be in it together and you want to collaboratively find the resources that you need, is honestly, I think, more important than anything.
Well, so next we're going to talk about relationships, and that relationships, in general, if a good relationship, at least, they always have to be two-way, or multi-way. They just are not one way. But when you're first working on a startup company, it's going to seem like you're always kind of taking in rather than giving. So maybe you all could offer some suggestions to people of, as early time founders, what is it that you potentially expect as this kind of two-way relationship that you would have with the people that you're networking with and talking to? And Charlie, I'm going to go to you with this first, since you're going through this right now.
Yeah, this has been something I've been super self-conscious about since I started the company because so many people in this ecosystem are so willing to help you and you really want to give back. So I was always really scared to ask for help because I was like, oh, I have nothing to give in return. But I'm now realizing like I really do. So we have, and everyone does, I'll give you a couple of examples. The first one is when we did Equalize, my mentor, who's now one of our advisory board members, was helping me with my pitch. She met with me every week. It was great. And I was like, man, this woman's so awesome. I wish I could help her. She's helping me so much. And now that I'm more of a person in the startup ecosystem, I meet people that I think should talk to her. I meet investors that I think should talk to her. She'll send me papers on organoids that have things to do with her research. And she's like, what do you think of this? And I can actually like give her my thoughts, and maybe you should ask them about this, or I have a different person who has a better organoid for you to look at. So it did, like, developing the relationship and learning more about her and what's actually helpful to her has made it very rewarding for me to then be like, hey, I met this investor who I think would fit you really well. I'm going to connect you guys. Or I met this other founder who has a technology that you could use. So I think that goes in with the building the relationships, understanding people, and then it allows you to realize, oh, I do have something to offer. The second example, and then I will stop talking, is like with VCs. I am not currently fundraising, but I have to keep the relationships up, and I'm getting to know these people better for the next round. So that will really help me pick who I want on my team. But their whole job is to give out money and meet other founders. And they have to give out money. Like, that's the deal. That's the whole model. So I've realized, like, if I really like them and I know what they're looking for in companies and I meet another founder, it's a win-win for all of us, because I can introduce that founder to that VC. If they really like them, that founder can get money. And then I also can continue to talk to them and remind them I exist and show that, like, I have this network of really cool other founders. And maybe when I raise money one day, you'll remember me. So it's all about building the relationship, understanding how you can help other people. And I guess don't be afraid to take it first, but just be willing to give later. And maybe don't feel so self-conscious, because it will come back around. I don't know.
That's fantastic advice. And I saw a lot of nodding there from Nee and Jennifer. Nee, your thoughts on making this a two-way relationship?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly spot on. Like half of the intention behind kind of office hours and taking meetings is we want to help, right? We want to because everybody got somewhere by leaning on somebody else to begin with. So, I think that concept of paying it forward. But the other is that, we hope that if we meet a founder, everything that Charlie said is true. We love when people that we don't work with end up investing in send us deals, because it's a good validation personally that you're a decent enough person that like somebody else liked you enough, right? It's also a good kind of like professional validation that that conversation was meaningful enough that somebody remembered you to refer later. Uh, on the side of what can you kind of provide as a startup founder, deals are always a good one. Or oftentimes when I have conversations with founders and I say, if I feel like there's nothing at that moment that I have as an ask for them, I say, in your space I have curiosity about these topics. If and then when you ever see something in that space, please refer it to me, or something like that. That always is I'm always looking for that, because I don't know enough about anything in order to be an expert in everything, right? And so anybody that I meet is an expert in whatever it is that they are specialized in. I will say one thing though, is that this concept of like feeling like you have to give something to be deserving of somebody's time, you when you question like why you deserve that other person's time, you take some of their own autonomy away. Because, like, if they chose to meet with you, they, as an autonomous person, made that decision because they felt like it's worth their time. So, like, please just don't go into that and have that kind of be the undercurrent. Because I've been in meetings where half of the meeting, like, it's like, a 45-minute meeting, and half of the meetings, they're like, oh, I don't know why you're meeting with me. And I'm like, man, if we had just spent like those minutes actually talking about what you need, then we would have been way more productive. And so if you're not confident enough to like even take a meeting with somebody that you don't think you can do anything for, then we'll question, do you have the confidence enough to go out there and take this huge astronomical risk to start a new company that could change the world?
The only caveat I'll make to kind of providing deal flow to VCs is definitely ask the VC first. So, if I meet with founders and they're sending me kind of unsolicited introductions with the other person copied, it's like, oh my God. We love learning, and so we likely will meet with the folks that you send our way. If it's not super on target for the moment for the firm, it's not going to be a meeting I prioritize. So, maybe I'll take that in a couple months. And it's not, unfortunately, we don't want that to be a bad reflection on you. It works for everybody if the introductions are just vetted first before they're actually made.
And I think that goes with everything. Like if you are going to introduce someone to somebody else, like that's really nice of you, but ask them first because to Jennifer's point, like maybe that's not a priority right now. There's been plenty of times people have asked me if I want to meet with people and I'm like, I'm just drowning right now and that's not my top priority, but I'd love to talk to them. I don't want to make you look bad. And it's a reflection. It is and it isn't. It goes back to the autonomy thing, but you want to put your best foot forward. You want to make sure people are actually going to connect with each other. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves. So always ask first. It's a great point, Jennifer.
We have 2 questions left in the 4 minutes that we have. So this should be kind of a quick one perhaps, but we've talked about kind of everything to do with startups and this early stage, et cetera. How about corporations? Corporations are a huge part of this this entire network and ecosystem as well. How about connecting with larger corporations? Is there anything that you found that particularly works well when trying to network with these strategics or large companies? And Jennifer, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think warm intros are always helpful. So asking your network or your investors if they can make a connection. And I think once the door is open, being very specific, for me, it's like big pharma. So the world of big pharma, those companies are mammoth. There's a variety of different functions and business units. And sometimes when, it can feel like that it creates a lot of barriers to getting to the right person. But sometimes it's because you don't know who the right person is, right? And so if you get an introduction to anybody at name your big pharma, I think the point of that next meeting is like, hey, this is really the type of conversation I want to have with your organization. Who within your organization is the best to have that conversation with? What function, what business unit, who specifically? And they can help you kind of guide you to the right person. Sometimes it's not as complicated as you think, and they can pick up the phone and call that person immediately and you can talk to them next week. And sometimes it takes a little bit of work, but just because they're bigger and more complex, it's still person to person. You're still talking to another human. So in some respects, it's the same rules that we've talked about for the last half an hour. And maybe it's just a little more important that you give some guidance on like what kind of function you're looking for, what kind of conversation you want to have. And they can maybe set some expectations about like, hey, listen, you're like way too early for that particular team. But I do think you should talk to this person over here, et cetera. So just being a little more specific about your ask and what you think this big giant corporation could do for you right now.
And learning perhaps about the programs too, because a lot of them have programs that actually work with startup companies. And it is, again, going back to what Jennifer's saying, getting into the right person to kind of understand what it is, or getting to the right website, even that kind of outlines everything that they do. Nee and Charlie, anything you want to add to that before we get to final thoughts? Okay, great. Well, so I would love to have some final thoughts of wisdom. You're all very experienced in this area about networking. Other advice that you have about building long-lasting relationships or about resources perhaps that you've used that were particularly valuable for your networks. And Nee, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say, quality matters a lot more than quantity. I know that you're supposed to go out there and have a lot of conversations and stuff, but I'm a social introvert, meaning that like, I'm performative and if I need to be an extrovert, I can be, but I'm really exhausted. Like after this, I'm gonna need like a 10-minute nap. Because I just need my own time and energy to kind of recharge. So, you know, I know everybody tells you you have to be engaging all the time and da, da, da. Nobody has the energy or time for that. And nobody has the emotional energy for that. So I think, if you find a couple of people that you really vibe with, just remember to come back to those people because quality matters. And I split up kind of mentors in kind of 3 different buckets. There's like the people who um, can do for you exactly what you're asking for right now. The people who can teach you the things that you need to learn, but you don't know. And then there's kind of like the personal side of it. right? And so like personal mentors, you can think of, if you're religious or you have a friend of the family, the professional mentors, the ones that can like open doors for you that you haven't asked to open and all of those things. And the first one being the people who can do the things for you right now. We tend to focus a lot on that person that can do the thing for you right now, but just remember the other two. And like somebody told me that in the ideal scenario, we find all three of those traits in one person. But if you find two of those traits in somebody and you can stomach that person and that person is pleasant enough, like just remember to keep those people close, because the time that you spend on somebody who isn't a good fit is the same number of hours that you could be spending on somebody who is a good fit. So quality matters a lot.
Good words of advice, Jennifer.
So I really like West, and I really like Breaking 7%. The latter is for if you're in BD and VC as a woman. The former is a broader bucket of women in science and technology. So there are some groups that I have found are kind of worth the time to be around like-minded peers struggling with similar things. And I'm also an extreme introvert. So for me, if I go to one or two of those meetings a year, that's amazing. And so don't kill yourself with the groups and the clubs and the meetings. But if you can find one or two that you just really vibe with and you make an effort to go to them occasionally, I think that can really help. And I think there's also you want a few senior women as advisors that you can kind of call and ask about maybe some of like these difficult contacts that we've been referring to, because what you'll do is you'll accumulate a list of folks that you don't want to work with again because it wasn't a good fit for whatever reason, right? And that's okay, and that list will be shorter than the people that you do want to work with. But it's nice to also kind of vet those experiences by more senior folks, like, oh, I had a really weird experience with so and so, like, was that your experience? So anyway, there are some groups that I think that are worth the time, but I wouldn't like kill yourself trying to be part of all of them.
Jennifer, Charlie, your final thoughts.
The one thing I'll say is like Zoom has been a great way to meet people really quickly, but it can be hard to really connect and like show your personality and understand them really well. So especially being a founder in the Midwest, I found it very, very important to like show up in person when you can. Like obviously there's a lot of barriers like cost flying here and things like that. But like for instance, I'm in Boston for Tough Tech Week right now, and I have like taken full advantage of being here and seeing everybody in my network and just checking in person, being like, how are things going? You'll just get a lot more in person than you will over Zoom. Um, that being said, like I'm a pretty big extrovert, but I also hit my social battery pretty quickly. So I find that if I can like strategically get everybody in at once, and every time I come to Boston, I know the people I need to talk to and just say hi to, it's also formed like wonderful relationships outside of the startup. And people, like, you'll be really surprised at how quickly you'll be able to click with people in person, or figure out that you are not going to click much faster by just showing up and being yourself. So that's all I have to say.
That's fantastic. Well, and we are going to try to take some of what you guys have all just talked about into practice right now. We have a half an hour left, and the plan is now for us to divide up into breakout rooms. So I know everyone has their screens off right now. We hope when you go into breakout rooms, you'll be willing to at least unmute and talk. We are going to have small breakout rooms. The point is that you all get to network with each other, meet some people who you maybe haven't met before, and they may be helpful to you in whatever your journey is that you're taking right now professionally. So I want to first thank, though, Nee, Jennifer, and Charlie for this amazing discussion. This was so useful. I actually picked up some points of things that I need to be doing in the future as well. So appreciate it very much. And now we're going to, love all the claps that are coming up. This is great. So Katie Mangles on our team is going to put everyone in breakout rooms. Each of our panelists will be in one of the 3 breakout rooms, and then we have 3 Equalize volunteers who are going to be in the breakout rooms as well, who will be moderating the discussion. So it's myself, my co-founder, Nicole Mercier, will be in one of the breakout rooms, and then Katie Hemphill, who's actually the brains behind this particular program. Her and our peer communities committee will be the other moderator in those breakout rooms. So please stick around and join us in those, and we'll have discussions with each other. When people are done, will just lead the meeting, and we really appreciate you all being here. If you have any questions on the Equalize program, please just join us and let us know.